All right, guys, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio, hour number 2 on this 15th day of January, Tuesday. And coming up here in just a second is Bob Fletcher. His website is, because I'm horrible at remembering to give this out. Gary does his best to try to keep me in line. BobFletcherInvestigations.com. BobFletcherInvestigations.com. We had him on last week. We were, and he's pressing the buttons as he's on hold. We had him on last week, and tonight's the third or fourth time he's been on, but it was established real quick. When Bob's on the program, we're going to go many different directions, and that's not saying anything disparaging about Bob. It's just that when you have somebody that has lived the life that he has lived, it's hard not to pick his brain on different things, because he's been involved with so many different things, from owning a toy company that ended up being a CIA front to Iran-Contra, to ordering things on the telephone and pushing the right buttons. We have Bob Fletcher on the program. And I want to make this announcement too, because I don't know if I did this last week, but Bob is like I said, he's been involved in a lot of different things in his life, testifying before Congress, writing reports on events that have happened that are covert in nature that we're never going to get to know about. But he's also the inspiration for Alex Jones getting involved in this movement, in the truth movement, if you will. So we're real lucky to have him on here, have him as a resource. So Bob Fletcher, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. I appreciate that. By the way, those button clickings you're getting, that's not from my phone, is it? You're talking about internally there?
Maybe. Well, maybe we have somebody tapping in here. I
don't know. No.
Okay, sorry about that.
Hey, all I know is I gave the guys in the black Suburban their darn donuts, so they should be leaving us alone.
And I wasn't referring to that, but electronically, I don't think it's my side here. But
okay, right, no problem. But let me start with this, because I don't know really. We didn't really get a hit on this. I wanted to open last time you were on with this is a landscape of the current situation we're in. You know, it goes back quite a while, but we've been indoctrinated into this. Everything is a crisis, and everything must be handled as a crisis. And because of that, we've ended up with everything from war on drugs, war on crime, war on terror, war on poverty, war on hunger. Now we have war on gun violence. But to the people who are maybe just now waking up or deciding to look past the mainstream media or their politicians' propaganda of the day, none of this is really new, is it? I mean, this has been
not at all.
Okay, this has been a way we've been governed for quite some time, right?
Right, and what's amazing that I discovered, again, I was just average guy. I'm maybe a little unusual because I'm an entrepreneur from a very young age and involved maybe a little more aggressively in life than a lot of people. Not the couch potato, so to speak, at all, at any point in my life.
You were even in Hollywood for a while, correct?
Oh, yeah. I've been in Hollywood. As a matter of fact, the book that I was writing, that I have written, and I have not published it yet, was an early version of it was read by Emilio Estevez, Martin Sheen's son, and he went crazy on the book. He said it was the greatest thing he had read in 5 years, and had to do a movie on it. Wanted to do a movie. It's got to be done. This is going to be like the Firm, the show, the Firm, and just went completely overboard. I mean, I never heard somebody so excited in my life. And then, unfortunately, when he got the last little section of it, which included an awful lot of negative things on Bill Clinton, who happens to be, of course, very close to Martin Sheen, his father, and maybe close to Emilio, I don't know. But then that was the end of it. Puff the Magic Dragon, they disappeared. And I was there in L.A. at the time. I was not trying to get it somebody to do it as a movie. Somebody had sent it to him, sent the rough copy to him, and he went crazy over the story, the whole thing. That was just up to that point in time, and that was approximately 98, I guess, 99, something like that point in time. But anyhow, that is how amazing my story is, and I realize that it is. That's how good it is.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
But I've done. I've already taken you off the sidetrack because
I already took time.
Yeah.
Okay, but the point that I was trying to make, I guess, is that I realized, to my surprise, how far back, how many years it is that the intention at a very high level of government control and wealth in this nation, how far back it goes, where they were planning to do whatever is necessary to eliminate the Constitution of the United States, put us into a singular world government, a new world order, a one world government with no borders and no constitutions for individual nation states, and that actually legitimately exists as a plan and had existed as a plan going all the way back, like I think genuinely about in the 40s or the 50s, when it really became solidified as an idea among the power persons of the world and a mutual agreement to do things. Now, and I discovered that after being taken advantage of by intelligence people, community in the United States, and seeing the people at the presidential level classifying, for example, information out of my own toy company, which had gotten involved with covert operations, and classifying my toy company as a national security threat, if you will, so that information could not be gotten. And when I saw that, again, as I say, as an average guy with a toy company in Atlanta, Georgia, it just freaked me out. I mean, I had already been in the service. I'm a military, had done my thing. I'm not a military type person, but had been in the service during the Vietnam War, and was just totally blown away. I'm looking at my country, tis of thee, land of liberty. What's going on? I'm thinking these people are actually hijacking America and the world to go along with it. And now, all the time that has passed, that discovery, it was absolutely his truth. There's no question about it. And they're doing it, and they're moving forward, and they're collapsing the finances of all the countries of the world. They're slowly eating away, as you will see tomorrow, when the President of the United States, Obama, will step forward and violently attack the Second Amendment of the Constitution, move forward on the potential of weapons regulations of all sorts. Unconstitutional, period. We can't go any farther than that. It is just unconstitutional. You can't do that. What he will do tomorrow in front of the cameras at 10 o'clock in the morning or whenever it is, he will present things that are absolutely illegal, unconstitutional, and shouldn't even be discussed by a president. You will sit back and see what goes with it.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt. They're gearing us up for 19. First of all, it's going to be proposed legislation that the Congress is going to be handed to pass. Now, all the people who think that can't happen, there's just too many Republicans out there that are going to vote this down. Well, that's the exact same thing they said about Obamacare. That's the exact same thing they said about the stimulus package. That's the exact same thing they said about raising the debt ceiling over and over and over again. Don't be fooled for 1 second. When the cameras are off, deals are cut, and we would have to be blind not to see that they're not cut on the behalf of a constitutional republic. They're cut on behalf of special interest and power elite agenda. We're going to be back with Bob Fletcher and more Wide Awake News Radio in just a few minutes. Hang tight. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath along with Bob Fletcher. If you're not in the chat room, you want to join the 70 or so folks we have in there, wideawakenews.com. Click on the Wide Awake Radio microphone, and you can join the folks in chat. You can also access the Justin TV feed from there as well. And again, thanks to all the Oracle and Rinse radio listeners for tuning in. Bob, as we went into break, I kind of told you what I'd like to lead off with, which is, we talked about this long-term plan, right? And obviously you've been doing this yeoman's work over decades of exposing corruption and fraud, and the takeover of this country and the destruction of a constitutional republic. It's been going on for a long time, but if we look back to a time period that you're very intimate with, which is the 90s, right? We had this all-out assault. We had Ruby Ridge, we had Waco, we had Oklahoma City, we had this demonizing of the militia, and this, what ended up out of it was Clinton's assault rifle ban that lasted 10 years and then kind of went by the wayside. And it seemed that effort to strip this country of its unique position of having the right to bear arms seemed to have failed in that time period. This assault seems to be they tacked from one position to another, but they've done a more complete assault over the last decade or so. Am I describing that accurately?
Absolutely, you're right on. In the 90s, when in the early 90s, when they started carrying on all these outrageous false flag activities, which demonizing, even including the Koresh. The church thing with David Koresh, where they demonized him, and he may have been out off a little bit or whatever. I don't know, and a lot of people hate it when I say that, but and he may have been askew a little bit. It's probably not a church I would have joined, but the bottom line is,
who cares? Yeah, he was completely set up.
Yes, he totally set up. They could have just issued him a warrant and done whatever they wanted to do and done their numbers. But the intent was what they ended up doing, and that was just to cause this extraordinary, violent-appearing event, with people shooting police, the police officers and all that stuff right through their windows and all. Whereas in reality, when you review the tape, which I have, and a variety of them going way back, it was their one or two of their own guys shooting their own guys, and then they did these outrageous things like, I had my own radio show at Butte at the time, Butte, Montana, and and I was, of course, watching it real carefully anyhow, because I had already been involved with so many different things, and I saw them get tractors out and bulldoze a big circle around that building. And when I saw that, the next day I went on the air and I said, mark my words, they're going to set fire to that place and they're going to burn those people to death. And, of course, unfortunately, I was right on. That was exactly what the plan was.
Well, the whole premise about, they sent a narc in there to join the church and then convince him to modify a weapon. It was a sting operation from the get-go, but to end up escalating into the tragedy that it did is unconscionable, no doubt about it.
But that was the intent also. It was not to have it be a simple sting arrest and do their thing. They wanted to turn it into this Holocaustic kind of an event, and that was what it was. Mm-hmm. Terrorize the people of the United States with this whole thing. And so... Anyhow, but the bottom line is where you were at. It was that in 1990, because of the militia movement, the Patriot militia movement, the groups that were starting to share information, which I was so profusely involved with myself, that fortunately slowed down the whole concept of one world government, eliminate the Constitution by use of treaties and executive orders and what have you, water it down, change it, alter it, get into the banking, the money side of things, and create a world government with a world money and a single world money and all of those different things, which was part of a plan that was definitively written in a projection that was generated in 1961 originally at the request of Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, was not finished until they had eliminated him, and it was delivered as a finished report to Lyndon Johnson, who was then, of course, president. The report is called the Report from Iron Mountain. And
right, hold on a minute. Hold on 1 second, because you're going to get cut off by this break.
Okay.
Iron Mountain, Karen Tostado, who does a program Friday night, has been talking to me about this, and she's been watching this as well. So we're going to get into Iron Mountain with Bob Fletcher on the backside of this break. Please stay tuned. All right, welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Charlie McGrath with Bob Fletcher. And Bob was just starting to get into Iron Mountain, a report called Iron Mountain. And Bob, I'm going to turn it loose. This is a longer segment, so hopefully you can educate us on Iron Mountain.
Oh, okay, and I'll try to do this as briefly as possible. All of these things are radically important bits and pieces, but this is like a 1,000-piece puzzle, and you could unfortunately spend a week on each one of the puzzles of the, parts of the puzzle, and we don't have that much time. The Iron Mountain report. So this was a report that was requested by the Kennedy Johnson administration, and the question that they were to answer was what basically they did and they didn't frame it this way, but it was what do we have to do with the United States of America primarily as we move into a one world government where we have no more enemies with Russia and Red China and those primary bad guys of that period of time. What they were saying was, what's necessary to and how do we present to the people of the United States of America that one world government is going to be better for them than an individual nation called the United States of America with boundaries and with a constitution that restricts basically they didn't never use this word, but turning us into a socialistic state, but making us feel good about it. And the report took a couple of years to accomplish. They finished it. It was huge, gigantic. The original report was gigantic in size. Ended up being delivered to Johnson, who classified it to be never exposed to the general public at all, period. It was never to be declassified or unclassified. However, a guy that was involved with putting that together was a fellow named Leonard Lewin, Lewin, and he was involved with it peripherally, and after a couple of years, he put it into a book that was published, and it was called The Report from Iron Mountain. It was published by the Dial Published Press Company. 1967 was when it finally came out, okay? A couple of years after it was all on the table and then put away. But the bottom line was this. I had heard about this thing, and it was in the early time of the militia movement, about 1994. I found out about this. This guy told me about this, and he says this is an outline. It is a 30-year plan to take over the United States of America, put us into a new world order, a one-world government, and it was all of these different things, 1, 2, 3, 4. And of course, again, it was even like the weather control as a weapon. When I first heard it, I couldn't believe it, and I said, how do I get this? So I started looking around. I found out, lo and behold, the report from Iron Mountain, published in '67, had long been gone. It had been out of print. It's one of these where the government bought up copies that were in libraries and burned them or did whatever they do to them. The stuff disappeared. I finally got a hold of an original copy of it in a hardback, small book size hardback. I read it, and it blew me away because it was exactly as it had been described to me. It was a 30-year plan, and what it involved was such things that, now you got to hold on to your seat for this, of those people that have never heard of the Iron Mountain Report. Published in '67, and it said, number one, it said, if we begin today and change some rules and regulations, we can probably screw up the atmosphere bad enough so that we can use that as a world threat to the American people, that in fact the environment was about to choke us off. And it says if we change some laws right now, a couple of the industries that we have underway, within 30 years, we will have screwed up the environment bad enough that the people will believe that that's a threat to our civilization. They also said that we can use the possible threat of some kind of an exterior, like aliens or flying saucers and stuff like that. We can use that also as a possible threat. Now, I don't know whether they thought these really existed or not, and which I happen to be a person that does. But they were using that, whether it was real or not. They said, we can use that. We can use some kind of a spooky thing coming in from outer space. Or they also, this is great. It says, what I think we should do, this is the group, all right, what we think we should do is we have to keep taxing. As we get treaties signed with Russia and Red China and all, and we don't really need big armies anymore. All right? Mm-hmm. We're not going to need a big army. You can't convince somebody that you need a giant army against people that we're now telling everybody are friends, like the Soviet Union and all of that. So what we'll do is we can create a thing that's called terrorists, and we'll convince the United States citizens that terrorism and terrorists are all over in little nooks and crannies, and they're now coming and they're going to start blowing up buildings in the United States and things like that. And we'll be able to convince them that we still have to take the same amount of defense money that we've been taking for 35 and 50 years, preventing communism. We'll switch that. Communism's got to go away, because we're all going to be buddies in this big world government. So what we'll do is we'll convince the American people that there's terrorists all over the place, and that those guys are going to be a requirement. It's going to make for a special kind of an army, kind of a special group. What would we call that? Now, they didn't name it at that time, but what I'm talking about, of course, is a Homeland Security. All right? And they even said, like the Egyptians that had never-ending projects going, we have to do something else. And this is great, right? They said, we have to keep this tremendous amount of money that we're taking out of the IRS, that the IRS is taking out of the pockets of the American workers here. We got it. We can't give any of that back now. We're going to be stopping projects. And they said, why don't we convince them, the same as the Egyptian leaders convinced their people to work entire lifetimes on pyramids, which were never-ending projects, okay? They said, let's go, tell them we're going to go to the moon. Why don't we tell them we're going to go into outer space? And if we can make it to the moon, that wouldn't be the end of it. If you make it to the moon, then we're going to have to go to Mars. I mean, that makes sense. If you go into the moon, then after you make it to the moon, you got to go to Mars. Now, whether they're doing it or not, that was beside the point. The idea was that that's where the funding would keep going. Now, you have to remember the time frame I'm talking about here. Like it was 61, if I'm not mistaken, or right in that period of time, when Kennedy had said, we're going to go to the moon. You know, we're starting today, and I know we can do it, and this is a nation that we do things not because they have to be done, but because they're there, you know, and all of that good stuff. And
right.
So they created NASA, and they started continually taking the same gigantic amounts of money for all of these projects. But the point is, I guess it was so freaked me out, again, because, you know, this was not something that was printed in 2001. All right, I got my copy in 1994. It was already had been vanished, and it was this was printed in black and white, 1967, and it was a description. The book I'm talking about was a description of the huge report that they had done in 61, 62, and 63, that period of time.
Hold on a sec, Bob. We're going to take our last break of the evening, and we're going to come back and keep talking about the Iron Mountain Report. Bob Fletcher is our guest. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Welcome back to Wide Awake News Radio. Final segment with Bob Fletcher. We're talking about the Iron Mountain Report. Bob, a 30-year plan to basically bring the world to what we're, you know, on the precipice of right now, which is the outcry of the people for a global governance, a global currency, a global force to protect us all from terror-loving terrorists. You know, the regardless of what you think about it, when you read into this report and you look at some of the tenets they wanted to achieve, here we are.
Oh yeah, that's correct. And when I saw this, again, I have to repeat this. When I saw it, it was like a 94, I think, because I included it in one of the earliest DVD reports. Actually, it was a VHS at that time. A report that I did on the whole militia movement, Beware America, What's Going On. I included it in and it was very inspirational for me in a tape, a DVD that's still available today, and it's called Invasion and Betrayal. And it's 40 years, the title of it, Invasion and Betrayal, 40 years of planning or whatever it was. But when I saw it in 94, at least half of, let's say there was 10 steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that had to be accomplished, all right? About 4 or 5, possibly 6 of them had been accomplished already in 94. And again, bearing in mind the date that they were doing it was 65, 63, that area, that period of time. 30 years on their intention was a 30-year program would have made it about 99, okay? And what happened was, because of the militia patriot movement of the 90s, we slowed them down 8 or 10 years in terms of what they wanted to do. They were unable to pull the wool completely over everybody's eyes real quick, and so it has taken them longer to try and accomplish this.
Well, which is what I opened up with, which is it seems that their plan was on track, and during the decade of the 90s, and then it somewhat fell apart. So that leads us to what? 2001.
Right.
You all right, Bob?
Hold on. I just lost you. I'm sorry.
Okay, you're back now.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it certainly seems that there was a derailment of this agenda. You know, you talk about can do these things to industry to pollute the atmosphere, get people more dependent on government, looking to government for solutions, get rid of the big bad armies of the Soviet Union and the big monolithic army of the United States. Give us these special forces.
But to keep the ability to take our money on it. You know, that was a big part of their thing, was that we can't, just because when we convince the Americans that we don't have a Russian, Chinese, big, giant enemy out here, and we start telling them about all the other little things that we have to. And here was, a matter of fact, this was literally the wording in it, was that when we present smaller things like the terrorism and the environmental and everything, that it has to be a fear big enough, a fear of death for the citizens, for them to be constantly scared enough to keep just listening to us, jumping behind us as their protectors, and we can keep taking their money and we can mold them and move them into the world government. And the big deal was that gave me the creeps was that they said, you know, that it has to be equal of a fear of life or death to keep these people snowed, conned, and agreeable. So I was out, obviously, when this happened, and see all of these things were going on, you know, the Waco, the burning, the killing, assassinations, and all these outrageous things, and trying to tell us that this was terrorism and all of this, and all of these things were going to come in and kill us. Right away I realized, you know, this is absolutely what they're doing. This is Iron Mountain, and it's going, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4. By the way, it says we have to reach a point where we can control the weather. That literally is one of the points, that we will move our technology to where we can control the weather, and it's a necessity. And of course, later on, when I sat before the United States Senate a year later, I had enough information to prove that that was exactly what they had been doing, and that was a reality, which of course they tried to mock me still in 95 about that. But as we sit today, they've actually they've totally admitted it, and that's what it exists. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
So you know, and how much they're doing, who knows? And that's another whole problem. But what happened that was, I thought was great. I got such a kick out of it. I was out, of course, all over the country talking about this at that time. I was on the television and what have you, and I was on every major news element in the world. I had the people from TASS, T-A-S-S, from Russia interview me. I had Japan. I had the CNN, ABC, CBS, Good Morning America, Good Morning Australia. I was on every major program. And a small part of it always was because I had put out that DVD, the report, about which included this, was the existence of this Iron Mountain report. So I get a call about 90, I was in California at the time, so it must have been around 98, something like that, 97. And the guy called, and he was, if I remember right, he was from like 60 Minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, you're talking about this Iron Mountain report, all right? And this fella named Leonard Lewin is still alive, and he's the old fella that originally had written this. And he said he says that he just made it all up. And he says, and you're telling everybody that this is what it is and that it was a real thing. And, of course, I knew that Lewin, I had already heard that he had been seriously threatened and told, you know, for actually a long time, 40 years, he had been told that he needed to keep his mouth shut and back off from this thing. So they said, will you debate him live on television on whether the report's correct or not? Now, this is a guy that supposedly had written the introductory material for the whole book.
Right.
I said, absolutely. And I said, will he do this? Will he go on the air and debate me with this thing? Because let me tell you something. If this guy's material was made up, then one of two things is taking place. Either he is the greatest psychic since Nostradamus and he's alive, or secondarily, the United States bad guys in government are so stupid that they literally picked this guy's book up and started running the government on the basis of what this guy wrote on a paperback novel.
Right.
And I said, I can't believe that guy has agreed to debate me. And the producer said, oh, well, now, we told him we were going to talk to you, but we haven't gotten him to agree to that yet. And then I asked him, I said to the producer, I said, have you read that book, The Report from Iron Mountain? Have you read that? And he said, no, I got to be honest with you, I haven't. I said, you read that book, and then you get back to me. I'm here in Los Angeles. I'll just walk down the street and we'll do the show. Well, I get a call back about 3 days later, and he said, Mr. Fletcher, and I believe it or not, I think the guy's name was Rick Nelson, which I thought was interesting. Anyhow, he said, this is Rick Nelson with 60 Minutes, and the network doesn't want to do that show.
So that was the end of it.
He said, the network just does not want to do that program. And I said, well, thank you, goodbye. I said, I guess a couple of you read the book, right? Because the bottom line is, it's just in black and white, and it is a total blueprint for the takeover of America.
Where do you think, with only a couple of minutes left,
sure, yes, sir.
Where do you think we're at in this blueprint? I mean, we have to be close.
Well, at this point, again, if you take the 9 or 10 points, probably about 8 or 9 are accomplished. They don't have a total single world money yet, but they started by doing the euro. You see, that was a big step on that. They were trying to do it with Canada and the United States. I would say that we're at about, let's say, step 8 or 9 out of 10 or 11, whatever it was.
Yeah, and it could be argued. It could be. The argument could be made that the global currency is there. You know, it just. I mean, I guess in reality it is, but at least they're not just calling it, the world green or something. Where everybody. Right. But the big deal is, and we'll have to cover this, and I'd love to do it on another separate get together here. Sure.
The big deal is something a few years back threw a left hook to the entire world government concept that these guys are doing. And it's partially what I spoke to you about off the line when we were not on the air. Because things have completely been screeched to a stop, so to speak, in a lot of areas. Mm-hmm. And the bad guys with the money and the idea of world government are running scared. And we can leave it at that. On the next show, when we get together, I'll tell you what it is that's scaring them.
Well, you're doing a good job of teasing the audience, and we'll definitely get you back on to talk about that. I know what you want to lead into, and I'll save it for the next time you're on. It most certainly seems that the things in this report are coming to pass, and it's been done on every single level, be it economic, be it military, be it the control of the mass media, be it control of everything that governs your life from when you get up in the morning till you go to bed. Very, very scary times that we live in, no doubt about it. And I don't know if we'll have the type of movement like we had the militia movement in the 90s that put the brakes on this thing or not. But Bob, we'll get you on again real soon to talk about these topics.
Okay, and I'm going to hop off, but I want to say one thing real quick.
Yes, sir.
Anybody, I don't sell these. Get a copy of the report from Iron Mountain. It's called That's Good Enough. You can find it on, everybody's got it now, Amazon and all. It's about a $10 book. Get it. It's telling you what's going to happen to your life if they have the opportunity.
All right. Bob Fletcher, thank you very much. His website is bobfletcherinvestigations.com. We'll get you back on again real soon. Guys, please stay tuned. Thank you, Bob. Please stay tuned for Jeff Prince. You bet. Bye-bye. Jeff's coming up next. Tomorrow night, we will have Matt Widener on, and you absolutely don't want to miss it because he's going to talk about the largest scam that has happened since 2008. All right, guys, have a good night. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace.